Welcome to Trust and Estates Weekly. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we're here every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, going over to the East Coast. It's already 1 p.m. there, so you're more than halfway through your day. Lucky you. Only 4 more hours until cocktail time. Um, and we cover both estate planning and estate administration from the standpoint of our own situations, but also, like we will today, from the standpoint of professionals who advise people, help them plan, create, and administrate their estates. And so this morning here on the West Coast anyway, I'm very pleased to have as my guest Sedric Collins. Sedric's kind of a new friend of mine. I think we've known each other maybe for about a year now. And Sedric is an estate planning attorney. He's based in Century City, which for those of you outside of the Southern California area, that may not mean a whole lot, but Century City is one of the sort of top locations for professional talent, right outside of Beverly Hills. And has one of the truly great shopping malls as well. And so, without further ado, Sedric, thanks so much for coming on the show. Welcome to Trust and Estates Weekly.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So I thought we'd start out just to kind of hitting the highlights of your background, so people can get to know you a little bit and understand, who you are, as a lawyer.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So I'm a trust and estates attorney based here in Southern California. But however, this is a second career for me. I spent a number of years working in higher education right here in Southern California. In fact, my first job as a lawyer was working for a small university right here in the San Fernando Valley. One thing led to another. And around 2019, I started my practice here after learning about, just the troubles with estate planning. There are several entertainers that have passed away. Many of them I kind of make reference on in terms of their situations and some of my literature. And I was just taken aback how there's such a need for this planning and that there are not more professionals out there to serve this very important planning process.
Yeah, I think one of my friends told me there's going to be an $8 trillion transfer of wealth here in California over the next maybe decade or so. And there's not anything close to enough professionals to help people with that. So yeah, I think you really identified a crucial area in which to practice. So tell us, a little bit, kind of on a day-to-day basis, how are you helping your clients? What kind of activities are you involved with them?
Well, we believe here at Legacy One Law Firm that your legacy is more than just a stack of documents. There's two general approaches that we see in the marketplace. We see the more transactional approach, where it's seeking to kind of commodify just drafting and preparing documents. And then there's the approach where we use the relationship model, where we want to take the time to get to know you, what's important to you, your values, things that sit close to your heart when it comes to this type of legacy planning, because we believe that every family has its own set of unique family dynamics. And so we want to point out what those are so we can customize a plan that's going to fit your needs and it's going to work how it's intended to work.
Right, and that's really the key, right? Is people have maybe a vision, but then being able to fulfill that vision, especially once they're gone, can be not an easy thing. So you've written a book, and if you don't mind, I think you've got a copy there, holding it up so people can see what the cover looks like, and it's called. Oh boy, it's backwards on me. So let me get the name here. I don't know why my thing is coming. So it's called Prudent Planning for Family Legacy: The Truth Behind Wills, Trusts, and Estates. So what led you to write this book? Because as someone who has written a book myself, it's a lot of work, right? And it's time away from family, business, etc. So what led you to want to write your book?
Well, I can certainly agree with you about the time and energy and effort. This was about a year worth of work, but I consider it a labor of love because part of my mission here when I started Legacy One Law Firm was to educate and empower the community. Because part of the reason why folks don't move forward with this type of planning are the taboos, right? Who wants to talk about death? Who wants to talk about what happens when something happens to them, the unknown, right? And that raises so much anxiety. So I wanted to create something that was very easy to read, something that a fifth grader could read, something that's under 150 pages. The book is designed that is easy to flow and follow, pointing out some of the major pitfalls that we see day to day with families that or individuals or business owners that undergo or attempt to undertake estate and legacy planning. And
Mhm.
so what led me to this was look, there's I think it's 60% of Americans, if I'm not mistaken, do not have any even a basic will in place. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to kind of demystify, pull back the curtain, if you will, as well as point out some of the major pitfalls that I see from a failure to put a plan in place for those you love.
And does this book focus just here in California, or is it something that someone in, I don't know, Nebraska could use?
It's a great question, Kevin. We're based here in Southern California. We serve Californians throughout the state. However, we drafted, or I wrote this book, should I say, wrote this book to be generally applicable. Now, this is not legal advice for even those who live here in California, but
Hmm.
the general estate planning principles are applicable throughout the nation. But we always advise once reading this or any type of legal literature, seek the advice of your own independent legal counsel. But yes, the terms are generally applicable throughout the United States.
Okay, great, great. And so tell us, two or three if of the most important concepts that you develop in the book, so we can understand how it approaches this, like you said, kind of difficult, question of estate planning, this uncomfortable, question.
Well, the first thing we try to do is identify what makes up or comprises a comprehensive estate plan. An estate plan is typically not just simply a will or simply a trust, but there are a number of documents that support a comprehensive estate plan. A lot of times when we do reviews, we see that someone only has a will or only has a trust that doesn't speak to other things such as how do you plan for your incapacity? What if you don't die? What if you survive the
Mhm.
encounter? So we talk about one of the things is what makes up a comprehensive estate plan, the basics. We also talk about some of the common pitfalls, things that folks encounter when they try to do it themselves, right? The DIY
Mhm.
approach, do it yourself. We spend a lot of time talking about the common pitfalls with that. Missteps such as failing to fund the trust. We see that all far too often. And then finally, we kind of wrap up the book with your team, the team that you should put around you, be it your trust and estates attorney, your tax professional, your financial advisor. That's kind of your dream team, if you will. If, of course,
Mhm.
there's real estate professionals involved in that as well. We kind of highlight who the key professionals you should seek to surround yourself with to avoid those common pitfalls that we see far too often.
Okay, so taking the first one, you mentioned the other documents or the other issues that need to be dealt with beyond just a will or a trust, and you mentioned becoming incapacitated. So, what does that mean, and what are the issues around somebody becoming incapacitated that their estate plan should help really them and their loved ones deal with?
It's a great question, Kevin. And sometimes we think as human nature that it might not happen to us, right? And a lot of
Hmm.
times we get the phone calls from the kids from the generation below. We have our elder population are in the golden years, and then we have the second kind of we call sometimes that sandwich generation that typically will
Hmm.
call our office saying, "Hey, my mom has been diagnosed with this. My dad's been diagnosed for this." And unfortunately, a lot of times it's too late because they've already lost the capacity to plan for themselves. When you talk about incapacity is and planning for incapacity, it's appointing someone who you trust that will make critical either financial decisions for you or health related decisions for you when you lack the ability to do so for yourself. It can sneak up on you. It's a very slippery slope. You can have I've seen situations where there's someone who's been diagnosed with something within a month, and then within the next month they've completely lost the ability to make decisions for themselves. And so some of the
Mhm.
common things we see, it's like, well, who can make a mortgage payment for you? Who can continue to pay your basic household utilities? Who can apply for benefits if you need those, if you become incapacitated? If you have minor children at home, who will make decisions and take care of your kids should you become incapacitated? So there are a plethora of issues that could arise. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. For the cost of putting the state plan in place, just the simple power of attorney or an advanced healthcare directive can save your family thousands of dollars in legal fees once the emergency or the issue or incident has already occurred. It's exponentially more expensive once something has already happened.
And not to mention the emotional turmoil, which it's impossible to put a cost on that. So it occurs to me, listening to you talking about this issue, um, it would seem to be especially crucial, if that's a weird superlative, for someone who's a single parent, where if they are incapacitated. So wow, so then now what happens with their children? So what do you think about that issue, and how might that play into it, maybe differently than where you have a married couple, so both the marriage is still intact, and both people are still there.
Well, Kevin, I can actually speak from personal experience. My son will be 9 years old, and I'm actually a single dad. So yes,
Mm,
there are a little bit you're a little bit more exposed, a little bit more vulnerable as to what would
mm,
happen, right? And so sometimes when you have a spouse, you do have a little bit of a covering there, if you will, someone
mhm,
there who you share your life with to help you make those decisions. But one of the things
mhm,
that I've found though is that such as in this situation, such as advanced healthcare directive, that your spouse may not have all the rights that you think they may have. There's HIPAA
oh,
laws out there, right? So just because you're
okay, right.
married does not mean that you can necessarily see all of your significant others' personal medical records and information. So a lot of times when I'm counseling married couples, they're surprised to learn that no, your spouse cannot automatically see your x-rays and your blood work and your personal sensitive medical data, right? Because these HIPAA laws
Wow.
that exist
Mhm,
federally, right, and throughout the country.
mhm,
And so, but being a single person, though, that's not so much the issue as who's going to be able to make those decisions for you, right? Who's going to be able to be there by the hospital bed? Who's going to make that mortgage payment for you? Who's going to, like I said earlier, take your kid to and from for the school, right? To and from the school.
mhm, mhm,
Those critical situations, we're more vulnerable as single parents and single individuals than someone that may have a spouse or significant other who has some legal authority to make some of those decisions, although not all.
mhm. So you brought up another issue here that, in all the shows that I've done, I don't recall this coming up. And maybe you'll expand on it a little bit. And that is the assumptions that people make about what they're able to do, that it turns out they're not. So, as much as I've been doing this, it never really occurred to me that a spouse would be prohibited by HIPAA, right, from getting critical medical information about their spouse. When you say it, of course, it makes sense. But so, what are some of the other assumptions that you find people making, that in the words of Tony Randall, when you assume, you make a out of you and me, right?
Well, when it comes to estate and legacy planning, they assume that everything would just maybe automatically go to a spouse or automatically go to children. I wrote about that a little in my book, how there was a particular individual who was reluctant to plan after being urged by his significant other, but failed to plan, died kind of prematurely, and his family was hit with a bunch of issues. And his school of thought, his reasoning, his rationale was, well, you'll just automatically get everything anyway. And here in
Mhm.
this country, it just doesn't work that way to where nothing's automatic. And although there is, something called intestate succession, that simply means dying without a will. They're all default laws, but that going through the court system and the legal system, for anyone who's been through it, is anything but automatic, and can cost your family thousands, sometimes in the six figures, depending upon what
Mhm.
you have to get that asset or those group of assets passed down to your family lineage, be it a
Mhm.
spouse or to your children or other loved ones.
Right. Right. Okay. So, and what was the second issue that you mentioned after, uh, you know, an estate plan is broader than a will and a trust?
Well, the DIY approach, we call that the do it yourself approach. And the
Okay.
reason why that's so big, Kevin, becoming so much so huge, is because we have technology. We're in the information age. We have artificial intelligence. We have question prompts that we can put out there that can draft documents for us. And unfortunately, we see this mistake happening with trust in the states as well, or with online platforms that seek to kind of minimize the importance of nuanced planning for your individual situation. And
Mhm.
not to disparage any type of source, but there's no cookie cutter approach to family legacy planning. We deal with blended families, families who have children who are disabled. What about children who have spending problems and monetary issues, drug and alcohol, substance abuse, right? Children who are
Mhm.
underage that may require special resources and provisioning. A lot of these so-called online or virtual or digital platforms, they don't take those resources into account. And so in
Mhm.
most cases, what you kind of get what you pay for. In many cases, it's a template. It's simply a
Mhm.
template because that's what a software is, right? It's simply template
Right.
to where you're filling in information. I have a house, I have a dog, I have two or three kids, and they get everything, right? So it's really
Right.
generic and cookie cutter, and there are a lot of gaps there. And the biggest issue with DIY, it's not embracing the technology. It's you just simply don't know what you don't know. So what
Mhm.
we recommend is saving the DIY approach for your remodeling your kitchen or your bathroom at home, right? Because like, what's
Mhm.
the worst thing that's going to happen, Kevin, when you if you mess up the remodel on your kitchen or your bathroom? What's going to happen? You're going to eventually pay the piper, and you're going to call in a contractor to fix it.
Right.
But when you go about drafting a will yourself or a trust yourself, and you leave out critical elements, and you die, and we know right now there's no coming back from that. So it's pretty much the mistake is already pretty much it's ingrained, right? The mistake, and it's going to cost your family sometimes five, 10 times more to fix what you could have done the right way while you were alive.
Right. If it even can be fixed. Right.
Yes,
So I've
exactly.
got a situation right now where the fellow died intestate, and there are people outside his family that are, pretty exercised about the results, but there's no way to fix that. They're not even disinherited. They're just not even a part of the equation. And I think, if like, it was funny what you said about we don't come back. I mean, if I could go talk to this fellow, and say, hey, look, I've been appointed to administrate your estate. What did you really want to do about these people? I think he would have
Hmm.
wanted to have done something for them, but he didn't.
Absolutely.
So it's really, um, it makes the whole thing not only more expensive, but again, more emotionally fraught. So yeah, absolutely. All right. So so when it comes to this sort of do-it-yourself thing, um, and this is something I've noticed in my practice as a fiduciary.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times, like you said, what I think I might save by doing something myself or without um, consulting with counsel end up just being a longer route around. And it seems to me that especially in the estate planning arena, lawyers have really adopted the use of technology in their practices as a way to work more efficiently and bring cost savings to to clients because of the technology. Would you say that's a correct perception? Am I off base? And by the way, feel free to disagree with me if you think I'm wrong. But that's kind of my perception. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Oh, absolutely. So when we look at artificial intelligence, that's the thing that's been all over the news and the media for the past several years. And and there's a lot of fears around, hey, will this AI replace me as a professional? In fact, you may have not heard this, but there's lawyers who were citing cases that was erroneously, created by artificial intelligence, right?
Oh my
Right.
God.
There was a big case, or I believe it was here in California, where there was a lawyer who misstated cases that what he used artificial intelligence to generate his research. Now, here's what intelligence cannot replace as a professional is your duty to supervise. Okay. And so when you lean too heavily on artificial intelligence to do your entire plan and don't take the steps to just make sure it's correct, to fact check, to make sure this provision has been added, because this is still technology and it's still prone to some error. And
Hmm.
so what we have to do as professionals is use the tools and the resources to be, of course, be more efficient, right? But not kind of obviate us from our responsibilities of making sure we have a polished legal document that's going to best represent our client's interest. Because
Hmm.
it'd be, yes, we all like to push a button and spit out a comprehensive trust with all the provisions that's going to be tailor fit. It's almost like a custom tailored suit, right? You don't buy if you buy your suit off the rack, and you could tell it's a suit off the rack as opposed to it's been tapered and measured and it just fits better. And
Hmm.
that's what it is when you're taking technology and you're using that to be more efficient. Now, we use technology here at Legacy One Law Firm. We have virtual planning sessions where the majority of our clients can do all of their planning from the comfort of their own home using Zoom and other platforms to do so. And we also have a digital online client portal, which several years ago we used to have to mail or send them a packet to fill out critical information and get that back to us. We now have a secure online client portal, which is protected and encrypted with the latest software and technology. So our clients can feel safe that they have a client portal where they can upload sensitive data. That is technology,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
leveraging that and making it easier for our clients to get some of that critical information in the beginning stages. So we're all about technology and its advancement, but not at the expense of quality counsel and quality guidance and holding your client's hand throughout the process and making sure that they're going to get the outcome that they're seeking.
So this is such a great conversation because as you're talking about these various issues, you're raising other issues that I see that I think are so problematic. So this issue of moving documents back and forth, I can't tell you how often in dealing with, of all things, banks, where they will ask me to send them an email with account numbers or with tax ID numbers, and I'll say to them, I'm not comfortable sending that kind of information in an email where basically anyone could get a hold of it. Do you have some sort of secure portal available? And interestingly enough, oftentimes the answer is no. And
Wow.
the only like I'm dealing with a credit card company. The only way I can get them a death certificate, which also includes a social security number on it, is to send it through conventional mail. Otherwise, they want me
Mm.
to either fax it or scan it and email it. And I said, I understand the person is dead, but still, collecting social security numbers of deceased people is a full time job for a lot of people because it's an easy way to do identity theft. So,
Absolutely.
would you talk a little bit? How does this impact your practice?
Well, we have to put certain technologies in place. We have practice management software, which provides client portals and a way to upload sensitive documents. We also have our own standalone client portal that kind of guides our clients through this process. And we're very careful. We don't collect social security numbers, for example. Where we don't there's a social security number, it's not required to create an estate plan. So that we don't even ask for. So we're
Okay.
very selective about what we ask for, and we give our clients several options to submit this information to us. I just had a consultation with a client or potential client who was very reluctant to send certain information in certain mediums because they had been a victim of identity fraud or identity theft in the past. And so we have
Hmm.
to provide them a safe and secure way for them to feel comfortable, even if it's something as old school as coming into the office and letting us take a physical copy. And I've done that before of what they want to share with us. But then we do
Hmm.
let them know that we take this, we don't keep that loose information around the office. We put it, we have to digitally store that information now, right? Because we want
Hmm.
to go to a paperless paper. It's safer to be paperless in most cases anyway. So we have
Hmm.
digital storage with encrypted files. So there's ways, because a lot of risk can come with just having loose paper in the office, right? Something that's loose. So of course we have the lockable cabinets and things of that nature, but it's still a document that's loose. So we
Hmm.
have both physical uh, and digital means for clients giving us information and keeping that, because there's laws out there, there's confidentiality laws, there's different privacy laws, and we have to make sure that we are adhering to those in our clients' best interest.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get through all four of your points. But why don't you, points 3 and 4? Why don't you, raise one of those again, and let's talk about that before we have to wrap up the show.
So one of the things that I talk about in my book is your team, putting the right team of professionals around you. Because back to those blind spots, you just don't know what you don't know. And you being a professional fiduciary yourself can probably relate, right, to knowing something that your client would have never thought of themselves. That's why they're
Hmm.
hiring us. So when I'm counseling friends and family members, and sometimes I get approached with, well, where do we start? Well, it starts with assembling that right team. Many folks already have a tax professional that handles their tax matters. We receive many clients from financial advisors. So the same should
Hmm.
energy and detail should be put into finding the right estate planning attorney, someone that's experienced and someone who is not doing this as a side hustle, if you will, but someone who
Hmm.
has their practice area that primarily focused on the day-to-day nuances and pitfalls that come with trust and estates and family legacy planning. So your team, the people who you put around you, that's essential to making sure this is going to right. You're protecting and preserving what you've spent sometimes a lifetime to build.
Right. Okay. So the team would be your tax planner and or accountant,
Yes.
your financial planner, your estate planning attorney. Who else might be a part of that team?
Well, if you're dealing with real estate, of course, you have licensed real estate professionals. You have professional fiduciaries such as yourself, right, who may handle some administrative process. We get a lot of phone calls from the survivors who are the successor trustees in the trust. And sometimes they're like, Cedric, we don't have a clue. Can you lead us? Can you guide us? Now, my firm does not do full service administration. We can offer some consultation and guidance and refer out to professionals such as yourself that handle this type of matter, because that should not
Hmm.
be undertaken alone, because there again, you don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
the beautiful thing about estate planning, Kevin, is that a trust, a well-written trust, gives your successor trustees the ability to hire any professional to wrap up
Hmm.
someone's final affairs, whether it be other attorneys, whether it be lawyers, whether it be real estate agents, other
Hmm.
fiduciaries. If you don't know something, it's best to hire the professional, because you will be responsible as a fiduciary, even if it's your child who's a trustee, right? Many folks name their
Right.
children as trustees, and they don't know that this is a fiduciary. It's a position of high trust, and that the other
Hmm.
siblings can hold that other sibling accountable for what they do and
Hmm.
what they do not do. So why take that risk? Just pass it off to a professional. You don't have to use your own resources to do it. That you can use the resources from the estate to hire the appropriate professional to make sure it's done, and it's done competently.
Hmm. And this is what I see sometimes in my practice is when one child is named as a successor trustee, but the other ones aren't. So now you've basically built in conflict to this process, and the one who's named as the trustee, oftentimes they don't want to cause conflict. But it just seems inevitable, and so now they're kind of they're in the hot seat, so to speak, and so again, getting that advice up front, I think, can help people avoid this. Well, unfortunately, the time just zoomed by. We're already done with the show, but we were Sedric and I were talking before the show started that I was guessing I'm probably going to need to bring you back again to talk again, because there's so much here to unpack, and your experience is so deep, because this is what you do, and I would love to go through maybe some of the difficult cases and clients that you've dealt with as kind of examples, so people can see what are some of the problems that typically come up and how can they be solved, that sort of thing. So I'll have to have you back for a second time. So but before I let you go, show us again your book, so people can, and this is available. Is it available on Amazon, or?
It is available, Kevin, right now on Amazon. Prudent Planning for Family Legacy: The Truth Behind Wills, Trust, and Estates. It's available on Amazon, and it's soon going to be available on Audible. We're working on that right now for all of my commuters here in California, stuck in that traffic. Will be available on Audible soon, so you can just listen to this, what we think to be or believe to be valuable information on your drive or commute to work. But for right now, this is a quick, easy read. It can be found on Amazon, and I'm happy to provide any links or other resources that may be helpful to your audience if they want to obtain a copy of that book. And it's also available for Kindle as well. So you can download the PDF and look at it right on your smartphone or tablet.
Okay, so I'll put a link to your book in the show notes to Amazon. It'll be an affiliate link, so you'll get $1, and I think I'll get a penny or something if somebody buys it. but I'm looking forward to reading your book. I didn't have a chance to read it before the show, but it sounds like a tremendous resource. I'm also going to put your contact information. So anyone who's watching, if you have questions, if you'd like to speak to Sedric, talk about your situation, his contact information, email address, telephone number, etc., will be in the show notes. Feel free to give Sedric a call. I can personally vouch for his knowledge. As you can see, it is deep, it is broad, and one of the things that if you recall Sedric said in the very beginning that I think is so crucial is Legacy One, his firm, is looking to help you create an estate plan that aligns with your values. And that's, I think, critically important, because in the end, that is our legacy. It's what we leave behind is our values. Hopefully we've instilled them in our children, etc. And it should be, the issue around which our estate plans are built. So Sedric, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Real welcome. Very, very welcome. I'm going to have you hang on here for just a minute while I wrap up the show, and we can talk after we go offline. So folks, thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you got something out of it. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. is my show, Business Lessons from the Military. My guest is Joe Shichin. I knew I was going to blow his last name. It's Sachinsky. And Joe started out as a soldier in the U.S. Army, and he has taken that knowledge to build a tremendous business mentor practice. He's worked with over 1,000 clients across the country, and so you're going to see in action business lessons that have come from the military. So I invite you to join Joe and me tomorrow, and then on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time is this month's edition of Economic Echoes, how the economy and what's happening within it impacts each of us as an individual. I say this every month, we don't live in the average economy. We live in how the economy affects each one of us. And so we need to be able to look at economic data, understand that, and then get a sense of what does this mean for me, for my family, for my business, et cetera. So again, 10 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday. And then a week from today, we'll be back for the next edition of Trust and Estates Weekly. So again, I thank you for joining Sedric and me today. Sedric, once again, thank you so much.
All right,
and
my pleasure.
Off, as I always do, Marie, darling, you are my bell. You know you are. Courage at all times, my friends.